Good evening, everyone. We're the Indian Animal Studies Collective. I'm Susan Harris. My co-host Anu Pandey is not here today, but we have Krishnani who's going to be moderating this session with us. We aim to bring together academics and activists and writers who are working on animals in India. Today, I welcome you all to this discussion on community and responsibility. We're going to be talking about Arikomban, the elephant from Kerala, who has now been translocated twice because of what is typically described as a human-animal conflict. We have with us Prakash, who's the founder of ELSA Foundation charity. Other panelists, Sreedhar Vijayakrishnan, who's a wildlife biologist. He'll be joining us shortly. The conversation is just for 1 hour, so anybody can ask a question at any point by raising your hand on Zoom or by typing it out on the chat box. I thought we could begin the session by asking a kind of abstract question, which is, even though we know so much about Arikomban and his life story, so to speak, has knowing that perspective changed anything in the media or in people's minds? So has Arikomban's life story made any impact?
Okay, this question is for me.
Yeah, it's for you.
For me or anybody can answer?
No, I think it's for you and Sreedhar. It's a common question to both of you.
Okay. See, this case, Arikomban case, if you consider in 2002, 2003, during that time, Kerala government allowed more than 500 families to settle down in the Chinnakanal range. So there was a letter written by the DFO saying that this will lead to huge conflicts. So ignoring that objection by the DFO, the Divisional Forest Officer, they moved people there. And immediately after they moved, this human-elephant conflict started in that area. And the elephants started coming close to the people's human habitats. And all these conflicts are there from those days. Now it is escalated to such a level that they want to remove these elephants. And also maybe if one elephant is removed, after 1 or 2 years, they will ask another elephant to be removed. So this is going to be like a continuous story kind of thing. So I see from various news media, like there's a group of people who are saying that it should be removed, and there is another set of people from the same Chinnakanal area who are saying that the elephant should be brought back to Chinnakanal. So a divided opinion is there. But media has played a villain role in this whole thing, both in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Without verifying the facts, they have just branded the Arikomban as a killer, killed so many people, 15 people or 20 people or something like that. And continuously spreading negative news about elephants, creating hatred among people about elephants, even normal people. Like recently when the Tamil Nadu government shifted the elephant to the Kalakkad Tiger Reserve, people in that area started protest. And one person was telling it has killed 38 people. But the Kerala High Court order on 12th April, which clearly says, as per the Forest Department records, this elephant has not caused any loss of human life. So there is not a one single loss of human life being tagged to Arikomban. So this media, without verifying, the moment they see any HEC case, immediately they brand the elephant as a villain or has killed so many people. This has been there for a long time. I have handled similar cases like Arikomban in the past also. The media doing a negative branding without any valid proof.
Right. Dr. Sreedhar, are you able to participate now?
Yes, I've just connected back on.
Okay, so great to see you. Yeah, I just wanted to know, how important is Arikomban's life story? I mean, we know so much about his life, like how he lost his mother and how he loves rice. So how important are all these details in us thinking about this human-animal conflict?
The fundamental thing about managing human-wildlife conflict, particularly human-elephant conflict, or by and large, wildlife conservation as such, is to make sure that emotions doesn't get entangled in it. So the whole narrative of the animal's elephant, the elephant mother dying when the animal was a calf, or the elephant visiting the grave of its mother and all, it's just too anthropomorphized to be practically possible. And the highlight of this story is that this shows how one should not manage human elephant conflict, because this is a pathetic case of how be it the government or be it media like Prakash mentioned, or be it by and large the local stakeholders shouldn't be managing a situation like this. Because see, like Prakash also mentioned, there are Kerala Forest Department submitted an affidavit at the Honorable High Court of Kerala, indicating the number of property damages and human casualties and fatalities that have occurred in the landscape during a period of say 20 years or so. But nowhere is there an evidence that shows or that traces back all these instances to this particular individual elephant. Yes, there have been instances of accidental encounters with elephants and that have caused fatalities. One cannot rule that out. But does that track back to this particular individual animal is something we don't know. And first of all, in human wildlife conflict management, problem animal management is a disastrous approach to make, because you remove the animal. First of all, they themselves are actually indicating the fact that the animal has been there and that this particular individual elephant has been there in that landscape for over 2 or 3 decades, which means that the animal is pretty well habituated for of living in human habitations with occasional, house raiding or feeding from human habitations. Now, what is the fundamental issue that needs to be addressed? The issue that needs to be addressed here is how best one can curtail such instances from happening, how best one can manage elephants from entering human habitations and causing damage incidents or casualties. For that, there are umpteen number of other scientific methods that have proven to be success, including, now when I mention fences, there are a bunch of farmer organizations and including the Forest and Wildlife Department in Kerala who would jump at me and say that the fences are a failure. Yes, fences tend to fail when they are not maintained well. The fundamental issue with fences not working in Kerala is because the lethargy in maintaining them once they are installed. It's not like an automatic, automated robotic system or something where you just install it and it takes care of its maintenance on its own. You have to take care of its maintenance promptly, and there are places in other countries like in Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, and many other places where fences are working fantastically well. Now, this just shows that, in a knee-jerk response, a problem animal approach of, removing an individual in the name of conflict mitigation is an eyewash, and in some sense takes care of public pressure for, let's say, a few months before they start pressure with the next animal, and then you eventually capture the next animal too. Otherwise, this by and large doesn't resolve the issue, worsens it, and is actually against the larger principles of conservation of elephants. While the forest department is supposed to be conserving elephants, they are actually acting against it by making decisions such as these when there are other measures that could possibly resolve the problem.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to pick up on what you said about emotions, because that's interesting to both me and Krishnari. And I wanted to ask Prakash also about this. It seems to me that though there has been some amount of anthropomorphism when it comes to Arikomban, the emotions that have been felt by people and that's been taken up by the animal activists, that's been helpful in avoiding some more worst case scenarios where there is more harm done to the animal. And so in that case, would you think that emotions and how, that helps people perceive certain situations can help in better solutions for the wild animal? What do you think?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Like there was a Master of MPhil research done on this people's tolerance level towards wild animals in Ooty district in Tamil Nadu, in a place called Gudulu. There is a elephant researcher there whose native is there. So he did this. He did this MPhil for Oxford University in UK. So he studied the tolerance level of people and found that the native tribes who were there for centuries together in that Gudulu mountain area in the Ooty district, they consider animals, wild animals, to be part of their life, and they never consider the animals to be a villain or something like that. And even if the animal is eating their crops, they don't bother and all those things. Only the settlers who has come from some other cities, from a big city like Coimbatore or somewhere, and trying to grow some cash crops, some cash making crops in that area. Only they are protesting against the wild animals. They are saying it is coming and eating our crops and trying to block the roads and create some problem to the forest department and all. So that thesis was very well written about how tribal people, native tribal people, are very tolerant towards wild animals. They don't bother. They are very attached with that. And I saw the same reflection of the same. I filed a case in Kerala High Court in around 2017 or something for an elephant captured in a mountain region called Attapadi. That elephant, when it was captured and taken, some group of people have created this problem and made sure that forest department removes that elephant from that area. But actually the tribal people, they all went and gave a petition to the DFO of that region saying that after capturing, we want to go and see. The elephant was kept near Cochin in government elephant camp. So they said, we want to go and see our beloved elephant after the capture was made. So the tribal people who are native to that place. So this clearly made the difference that people who don't have tolerance of wild animals are only focusing on money making. People who settle from some other place and into this mountain region. This is Attapadi region. I have written a detailed report about this elephant captures in India. It's available in my website. The title of the book is Elephant Capture in India and the Kerala case study. So when I did the research, I found that in that mountain region Attapadi, it is having 196 village hamlets. The highest number of village hamlets nowhere in South India we can find in a hilly region. And the people living there, according to the census of the government, 57% of the people are non-tribal people. 57, only 43% is tribal. And that Attapadi region has the maximum alcohol consumption in the entire Kerala. This is all published in government records. They drink alcohol and walk in the midnight somewhere near the forest. And elephants, when they cross the paths, they accidentally hit this person and the person dies. And it is branded as elephant has killed a human being. But it's basically an alcoholic person going in the night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the forest region. So these things I have documented in that these things. So emotional thing we cannot ignore. Emotional trigger will always, we need to analyze the emotional in one hand and the scientific solution on the other hand, and finally come out with a positive solution. We should never ignore that aspect also. We should always consider that. On the other hand, scientifically, we need to see how to take this forward, how to solve this, give a long-term solution for the problem.
Would you like to respond, Sreedhar, to this?
The point is, see, well, emotions are nice if if they help the narrative to be, something that's more, more logical in some sense. But otherwise, that's only going to like for instance, I was particularly mentioning about the whole emotional narrative in case of Arikomban, where it doesn't help the elephant in any way possible. In fact, the people who are actually protesting right now make no logical. People who are protesting the animals' translocation, for instance. The translocation was a bad decision. There's no second thought about that. But that said, now the whole protest of asking the animal to be brought back and all are just illogical arguments. one cannot, I mean, if you take science into consideration, that doesn't make any sense to, bring back the animal at this point, or even for that matter, the kind of, I mean, we all know, of course, elephants are social animals, but male elephants tend to, disperse from their herd when they're about 12 to 13 years. They do not remain in their natal herd when they are in a breeding age. They disperse farther from their natal herd when it comes to their breeding cycles and all. And Arikomban, who has been coming into must on a fairly regular pattern, is a breeding bull. So clearly, one cannot be particularly sure whether the whole ideology, or rather the whole narrative of his mother dying, and the elephant visiting the mother's graveyard. I don't know how logical that sounds, and in no way possible that has actually helped the animal's life either. Because I mean, of course, in the larger public domain, there has been a lot more sentiments and empathy for this animal. But has that really helped in bringing out logical scientific solutions? I don't think so.
And, the scientific part of the argument that activists and some other groups of people make for bringing back Arikomban is that some elephants have a homing instinct, and that he wants to return home and he's making his way home. And if he's going to continue to cause trouble at other places close to human settlements, then bringing back home is a possible solution. So do you think there's some truth to that?
See, the thing is, elephants in general tend to show three different kinds of patterns when they are translocated. They either wander about and go to newer areas where they create conflict, areas where conflict has not been, like in this case, the elephant moving into Kambam town, for instance. So that's a clear wandering pattern. Some elephants tend to show what is called as homing instinct, where they come back to, the place of capture and then continue to remain there. And in very few cases, the elephant settles down and creates no conflict in the release site, nor makes any attempt to go into newer areas or come back to its original site. That's in very few cases, the animal settling down. Now, when the animal settles down, we don't know what happens to the animal's health either, unless the animal is collared and tracked regularly on a regular basis. So, in case of homing or in wandering, now in this case, if, fearing that the animal, first of all, the translocation shouldn't have been done. Now that it has been done, looking at whether the animal has a homing instinct, and based on that, bringing back the animal, I don't think is logical at all. So, if let's say, hypothetically speaking, if this animal is going to be captured and brought back to Chinnakanal, yes, there is a good proportion of people who actually support having this animal there, having local sentiments for this animal there. But there's also, let's not forget the fact that there's also another larger proportion who have been protesting for getting this animal removed from there. So what if this animal gets electrocuted or poisoned the next day of bringing back the animal? So in some sense, if the animal settles down now that they have moved it to moved the animal to Kalakad Mundandare Tiger Reserve, if the animal settles down, well and good. But otherwise, you have already got mud on your boots right now. So the only option is to make sure how best you don't get any mud, mud any further, and how best you can clean this whole dirt up right now. But that said, when making decisions like translocation, one has to be extremely, wary and extremely thoughtful and considerate of several factors, including the age class of the animal, the sociality of the animal, possibly if there is any understanding of whether that is, the natal range of the animal or not, or what the home range of the animal or not. So there are a bunch of such factors, related to elephant behavior and ecology that needs to be taken into consideration, all of which have very conveniently been avoided and, overlooked completely while making decisions such as this. So, like I mentioned earlier, human-wildlife conflict management cannot be a political decision. It has to be a logical, social problem-solving decision backed by good science.
Prakash, what do you think? Do you think, as the activists do, that Arikomban should be brought back? Does he have a right to home?
Actually, there is a DFO of this Munar, ex-DFO in 2002, who opposed this human settlements to be brought there by the government, more than 500 families. So the DFO has written a note now. I think it was submitted in the court also. So there are in that some 500 plus families, only some 40 families about approximately are living there because of constant elephant movement in that area. All the others have moved out of that location. So there is a Kerala house development project or something which is willing to sponsor houses for these people. That's a small group of. And she says if they take the people from that location and give them that alternate place using that government project and declare the Chinnakanal as a sanctuary for elephants or wildlife. That is a one possible solution for this thing. As of now, still the people are there. Then again, this elephant is, if it is coming back, then see the problem is there are two types of elephants. One is the crop consuming elephants, which just comes to the agricultural field, and there is not much problem noticed. Only the crop is consumed and all. So in Manas, in Northeast, Manas National Park and all, they use hanging fence. Because normal horizontal fence, they break very easily. They use hanging fence to prevent elephant. It's successful there. Something like that can be done. But if it is breaking the buildings and eating rice and all, the intensity of the problem is more. Maybe somebody sleeping inside the house, the building falls on the people and some fatalities may happen. So that is a big issue. But one more thing which I have written a report, case studies on translocation by comparing the past case studies. If you remove an elephant from the native range, that is one big shock for the animal. Because in the new places, it doesn't know anything. Like we human beings, we are using Google Map and all those technologies to navigate and go. Elephant doesn't know anything in the new area. So that is a big problem. He doesn't have any friends there. Even the male elephants form small bachelor groups. It doesn't have any friends there. The area, the geography is completely new. It doesn't know where the water holes are, where to eat food, what are the migratory routes, nothing. It doesn't know anything. All these are a huge shock for them. Apart from this, removing it from the friends whom it knows in that area. That is another shock, another big shock. So giving multiple shocks at the same time to the elephant will automatically tend to come back to its home range. Automatically. In multiple cases, I have seen this, including Arikomban. It was coming straight towards Chinnakanal via Kambam, the town. And on the way, the Tamil Nadu Forest Department captured him. It was the perfect route it was coming. So I had suggested in my report saying that if you want to, in case if the government or the court is deciding based on various factors to translocate, if you translocate an elephant along with this close friend, another elephant, at least that psychological strength will give them to survive in the new forest. So all alone, if you're just dumping an elephant in some unknown place, there are very high chances the elephant will try to go back to its native range only. At least if two elephants are shifted together, which are known to each other, which have lived together for so many years, then that psychological strength may increase the probability of the elephant remaining in that new forest.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it's very disorienting for him as well. Krishna, do you want to jump in?
So thank you both for agreeing to speak on the panel. I wanted to ask a question regarding, a connected question regarding how elephants are individualized in contexts like this, especially because in conservation, it is mostly the species that is given prime importance, and the individual animal or the rights of the individual animal is usually given less importance than the survival and the thriving of the species. So I wanted to ask, especially Sreedhar and then Prakash. As of now, we in Arikomban's case, we saw how the public discourse, the media, and even the communities around Chinnakanal and all these other areas, how they are individualizing this particular elephant by giving him a name called Arikomban. Especially considering that, as Sreedhar said earlier, that we do not really know if it was Arikomban who was raiding the shops or who was stealing rice. It was probably a group of elephants, but then whenever a shop or a building is destroyed, it usually gets ascribed to Arikomban because he has been identified already, or maybe he was in the group, or we do not know for sure. So there is a sense of individualizing the animal from the pack or from the herd, and that works against them. At the same time, the whole media discourses around Arikomban, how he's made an individual who attracts both empathy and anger and aggression. So I wanted to ask, like, what are the other ways of individualizing these animals in your own fields? For example, in wildlife fieldwork and all, how exactly is an elephant like Arikomban or an animal individualized? What are the processes that are different from the general individualization of the elephant? And also, like, what are the overlaps also? What exactly does the public get right about how an elephant is individualized? So I want to ask that.
It's a very interesting question, Krishnuni. So in fact, my answer is two-part. One is, it's injustice if you actually don't consider elephants to be individuals. Even in the wild, when we are studying elephants, we actually have individuals identified. They're highly idiosyncratic, so it doesn't make sense to generalize them as a species, particularly when individual behavior tends to be so variable. One thing that we have been doing, for instance, for my PhD, I had identified 300 odd individuals, and we had names or codes or whatever for those individuals. And one thing we have done over the years is to actually not reveal the identities to the general public, for instance. Say, for instance, if I had identified an elephant as IG, and I tell people that this is IG, the basic human psychology or basic human tendency is to then say that, oh, then IG might have actually caused this problem. So then the moment then problems start happening, it's easy to point fingers and say that this particular individual elephant might have been responsible when you don't have any empirical evidence to show that this particular individual has actually done this. Now, so that in a great way. So I used to work in this landscape called Valparai, which is very similar to Munnar, tea plantation dominated, about 120 odd elephants extensively using the plateau. That people keep local names, but the fact that their problems are under check through early warning systems have really helped people to not point fingers at elephants and say that, oh, this particular individual elephant is actually causing problem. Now, that said, the bad side of identifying individuals, and this is not today or yesterday. So this is in some sense the whole ideology of terming elephants as rogues comes from a very colonial perspective, and this is something that people like George Sanderson and Jim Corbett and others wrote about as problem animals. George Sanderson more because he wrote more about elephants. For them, elephants that tend to show repeated aggressive behavior became a rogue. Very often in those days, what happened was also the fact that some animals during hunting expeditions would be left injured and not completely killed. So such injured animals used to be more aggressive towards humans because of the previous experience or past experience that the animal has had. And those animals eventually became rogues. And now today we continue the same discourse of labeling animals as rogues in the context of human-elephant conflict, wherein we have had the case of Kologoli in 2005-2006 in Trivandrum. And we have had the case of two Bin Ladens, not once. Twice, two separate individual elephants were named Bin Laden in Assam, and both eventually, one was killed and the other one was captured and then died post-captivity, post-capture. So there have been multiple examples of animals being given individual statuses, having names or labels or whatever. Which is so. For instance, the best possible recent example is Palakkad has had conflict for ever, and this whole area, this whole conflict, so-called conflict-ridden area in Malampura, Doni, and all those outskirts of Palakkad Forest Division. Actually used to be a pristine forest back then. In fact, there is a Bombay Natural History Society journals. There's a paper in JBNHS back in 1954, if I remember it right, by the then commissioner of Devasams, the establishments of temples, where he writes about a wild elephant coming and courting one of their temple female elephants in Agatyatara, which is a village now. It is a panchayat now. So these places have always had elephants, and people, people in some sense were tolerant of conflict. The moment they started labeling elephants as PT1, PT2, I mean, the forest department identified elephants as PT1. So PT basically stands for Palaka Tusker. So the moment this started happening, they started labeling certain individuals that they could identify easily as problem animals. Like PT7, for instance, was labeled as a problem animal and captured because he supposedly caused a human casualty sometime in July last year. Now, I was monitoring elephants in that landscape during that period, and I know PT7 was nowhere close to the the incident location that particular day, because we had information, and this was information that we had given to the forest department also, saying this animal is not responsible for this particular casualty because this animal was elsewhere. But the whole fact that there was this narrative built around this identified individual as and being labeled as rogue, and media started playing along. The whole situation just worsened, that people only wanted this animal removed, saying that all possible conflict instances recorded so far where where this animal's responsibility, and removing this individual would resolve the issue. Now, ridiculous enough, the day PT7 was captured, that particular night, I called up the rapid response team of the forest department that is involved in conflict mitigation and asked them, are all your problems over now? Are you sleeping peacefully? And the response he gave me was, we are actually driving elephants from there. So you remove an elephant, stating that this is the problem animal, and removing this would resolve your issue. And that particular night, after removing this individual, if that was the animal responsible for all these issues, you should be sleeping peacefully, not driving more elephants. So it's a very tricky affair. Like I said, one should definitely acknowledge elephants as individual animals, because individual idiosyncrasy is extremely important, but at the same time should be very cautious and careful about not having this individual, individualism or individual identities backfire and then jeopardize their long-term conservation and welfare.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I wanted to also ask Prakash, like when you're writing the reports about elephant capture and captivity, you're generally talking about a species, like, a collection of elephants or elephants in general. So how exactly do individual elephants or specific elephants play out, and specific elephants and their case scenarios, and the violences that are meted out to them? How exactly do they play out in your own activism and in your own work?
Normally, I would like to compare this with the human example. For example, in a city, there is a kidnapping of children happening. The police should not say that there is only 2 or 3 children were kidnapped. So we're going to save the whole human species. We are not bothered about individuals. If this is the statement police is giving, nobody is going to accept that. They say every child should be safe. I apply the same philosophy to the animals also. All these individual animals, if they are ignored, then it will affect the species also. That is the reason there are more than 2,000 captive elephants which were shipped from northeast to South India. Because of the timber logging business, they illegally captured elephants and were using there. So in 1996, Supreme Court banned timber logging all over the country. So all these 2,000 elephants were illegally caught from the wild and kept in northeast states for timber logging business. So 2 questions, they could have used some machinery, modern machinery, because there are so many, majority of the countries in the world don't have elephants in their natural forest. They all use some modern machinery to cut trees and load the trees in the truck. So just because India and Burma had elephants, they cannot abuse elephants and capture and continuously use them for timber logging business. So all these elephants lost their illegally captured elephant. The government, Ministry of Environment, amended the law, Wildlife Protection Act in 2002, just to help these illegal owners, timber logging business owners, to sell their elephants by giving ownership certificate after 30 years. The initially ownership certificate were given in 1972. Within 30 days, they have given a deadline. You have to declare the animal, whatever animal you have, and get the ownership certificate. So specially they declared an amnesty scheme. Amnesty scheme was given in 2002 for specifically for these Northeast owners to get an ownership certificate and sell them. All these elephants have come to Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka because of the temple lobby. So if you ignore individual elephants, finally there are 2,000 elephants. 2,000 elephants, captive elephants, are more than wild elephants in many other countries. So the moment you, as I said in the human case, if you say only 4 children are kidnapped from the city, I will ignore, I'm going to save the whole human species. Finally, you will end up 100 children being kidnapped. It is an indication that the spark is there. The spark, the moment if you see there is a spark coming and something is going wrong, immediately you need to act on that and give a solution to that. If you ignore that and keep saying species, 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 all these individuals will become so big. That is a case which is a history in India, how the elephants are sold from Northeast with the illegally and which are suffering in Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, these 3 states, in the name of temple festivals and all those things. So now the latest amendment in 2022, they have added one more word, MOF, adding further to the misery of elephants. Elephants can be used for any purpose. So the elephants can be used for begging also now. The recent amendment has happened 6 months back. So the MOF, which is the body which is supposed to protect the elephants, is going against the welfare of the elephants. So there's a huge problem now. I will not ignore any individual elephant. The Born Free Foundation, which is the world's largest wildlife foundation, also has a philosophy which I am saying, don't ignore an individual animal. It gives a spark to you to save the entire species. So that is the starting point. You see a problem, immediately you start working towards that.
I wanted to, I'll come back to the captive elephant issue, which is literally the elephant in the room right now. But also I wanted to ask, for example, if you're like drawing a parallel with street dogs, and street dogs have become a really big issue in most metro cities and, you know, generally all over the state of Kerala. So like my stance, or like how I understand the whole issue, is that the dogs have been, you know, putting a lot of effort, if you can say it, into learning how to be in a human space, in a human urban space. Like the very simple case of negotiating traffic itself, like the amount of learning from the side of a dog that itself takes to negotiate traffic, to cross roads and to navigate the city and all that. So at the same time, the moment any suggestion is you know, given to people that they should also educate themselves or learn a little of dog behavior so as to mitigate, so as to, you know, avoid confrontations or avoid triggering a dog's anger or aggression or anything like that, there is usually a backlash. So if you are like replanting this to the case of elephants, and if we are to think of how exactly can we imagine a citizen's ethology, for example, right now the individualization of Arikomban that happened did not really happen ideally, or it caused a lot more harm than it should have. So how could we generate, you know, how could we expand the ethological practices in wildlife and conservation and also in activism? How can we expand that beyond the academia and beyond scientific practice into the public also, so as to, you know, give them skills, like equip them in some way to deal with elephants, to deal with conflict situations and all that? Like how exactly do we, you know, make them individualize elephants in a more ethical, in a better way? Is that something that is practical or possible?
See, I think the classic example for this is the case of leopards of Mumbai. You know, for the longest time, people used to have issues with leopards being in Mumbai, but now they're being tolerant about it. Simply because, you know, collective efforts by people like Vijayakrishnan and their team, you know, the whole constant engagement with media to be more positive about reporting these things have made a huge impact. That now people know individual leopards. People know that leopards still walk into apartments, stalk a dog and pick it up and walk away. But there are, you know, little pressures compared to what it used to be earlier in terms of leopards being removed and translocated elsewhere. Eventually the leopard homing back, you know, all sorts of complexities such as that. I always quote the example of the Mumbai Leopards because if in a suburban suburban environment of a mega city in India like Mumbai can actually accommodate leopards, we can have wildlife anywhere. And the whole idea of it is clearly an example that coexistence is a possibility. And this needs to be done through constant media engagement and talking, making sure that the media talks positively about it. Like, for instance, one of the cases that Vidya always talks about of this old leopard Azoba being translocated elsewhere and then homing back, crossing several cities, staying in people's backyards overnight and things like that, made more of a positive narrative. Had it been an elephant in today's scenario, where negativity has been booming in case of media reports about elephants, if an elephant had done something similar, it would have sparked a huge issue that people would have even wanted the elephant to be shot dead. Because I'm talking more realistically, because there are people who actually want elephants to be shot at when they are not elephants, wildlife to be shot at when they are seen in human dominated landscapes. Now, those are extremist angles of managing this problem, and something that we can never tolerate. That said, I think the point is also to make it very clear that coexistence is not about having, or rather being okay about having a wild animal in my house. Like, for instance, if you or me had a snake in our house, we would have it safely removed and let out elsewhere, let outside the house at least, to have a safer feeling. We obviously wouldn't want the snake to continue inside our house. That's a naturally understandable fear, psychosis, and then in what ways we deal with such situations. So likewise, if a farmer has an elephant in his backyard and if he's not okay with it, that's completely understandable, because it's his life and livelihood that's actually getting affected. Now, the point has to be that, how best one can manage these issues while having these elephants in and around these areas. So, the fundamental principle of fencing elephants, for instance, so the whole idea of the ridiculous idea of fencing the entire perimeter of a forest doesn't work. I mean, think about it logically. If you're actually doing 100-meter by 100-meter area, your perimeter of the fence itself is 400 meters. So for a 1 hectare area, your fence required is 400 meters. So imagine the length of fence that is required for parks that are like 100 square kilometer or 1,000 square kilometer, 1,500 square kilometer. It's going to be enormous. And then your efforts in maintaining such large or long establishments is going to be gargantuan. So obviously you're going to fail somewhere, that you will be more lenient in terms of maintaining these fences, and this is going to cause breakage somewhere that the elephants would eventually start using those breakages to walk in. Then coexistence is a failure, of course, because then you're going to have more problems again. But as opposed to that, if you're actually going to just put fences or barriers around human establishments to prevent elephants from entering those areas, rather than fencing elephants within forests, you're actually having a more simpler solution. So the basic idea should be not to fence them inside forests, but to fence them out of habitations. That's the difference one needs to make. So that would actually help coexistence to a greater possibility, have a more positive narrative. And this is all based on the fact that one needs to focus on the behavior and ecology of the species, like you rightly mentioned about the case of stray dogs, for instance, and how understanding basic things like pack behavior could resolve conflict with stray dogs, for instance, and when you are taking up measures, do it promptly, and like, for instance, measure, and the classic parallel between that and the stray dog issue is the barriers put up for elephant management is very similar to the ABC effort, the animal birth control effort towards stray dogs. Had it been done promptly the way it should have been, it would have actually managed the issue to a great extent. It hasn't. So that's exactly what is happening with the fences also. If you're doing fences the right way, you're going to resolve the issue. But if there are hidden agendas to it, if not having problems resolved, and then having your life as having your life based on a crisis-driven ideology, then one cannot help it.
I think that also speaks directly to Prakash's work on the branding of animals in media, and like how exactly can the media help in generating a positive discourse about elephants.
Yeah,
Please,
before
Prakash, yeah.
getting into that media branding, I want to answer the previous question. Coexistence. See, what I see in future is, see, I have directly gone to Kenya to see a place. There in the fringes of the forest, they have a very small resort where there is a water hole in just by the side of the resort. So every day night, several elephants come there to drink water. So they have the local people, Kenyan people working there in that resort. And tourists are from all over the world. They come and stay in that lodge and open the window and see the elephants drinking water and moving around in that area. And all the local people are getting benefited out of that because they run the whole that resort lodge setup. And similarly, one more resort is there in Zambia, where the elephants walk inside the hotel reception to eat mangoes in the center portion of the hotel. That's an open area. They go, all the elephants, it's there in YouTube. In Zambia, the elephants go, the wild elephants go inside the reception of the hotel. So these people, when there is a human, see, the human population cannot be reversed. The human population is in excess in India. So that is the reason for removing all the forests everywhere in India, and slowly the wild, the forest area is shrinking and the human encroachment is increasing all over India. So the other angle of this, the same problem is Padayappa, the elephant, is there in Munnar, living very casually among human beings. And there are this Chakakumban is there, another elephant, and this Arikomban, all these elephants. If this is in another country, like African country or some other country, they have made it to an ethical ecotourism spot. They would have built some 3-4. There are negative points in resorts also, but compared to this kind of problems and all those things, they could have employed the local people in Chinnakanal for these resorts to work there. And then they could have brought in tourists from all over the world and showed, okay, see the elephant, these are all wild elephants and all those things. This is another way of solving the problem. The people there in Chinnakanal, they will earn 100 times more what they are earning now by doing this kind of. There are examples, as I said, in Zambia, the elephants walk inside the hotel reception and go and eat mangoes, which is in the center portion, in an open ground of the hotel. And one place where I stayed in Kenya, I saw this thing. So there are drawbacks, I agree, to these kind of results. But compared to the current seriousness and intensity of the problem, this kind of thing. See, in Parambiculam, the government resorts are there, and people can come and stay and watch wildlife. And the local people are employed there in Parambiculam, this thing. So this is another way of. So the people are also happy because of these 3 elephants, Chakakomban, Arikomban, all these elephants are there. They are giving us money. Tourists, foreign tourists, or anybody is coming just to see these elephants. And because the tourists are coming, our income is increasing. We are getting job opportunity. So they will not feel like killing the elephant or removing the elephant or translocating. They will try to appreciate all these local people in Chinnakanal or any other place in India. So this is another way I'm seeing the same issue. How these elephants can be like shown to the people, and it could be another way of livelihood for the people there in Chinnakanal. But always there is some drawback in such systems. But compared to the current intensity and the serious negative issues happening as of today, the thing is very less. The negative issues and all those things are very, very less. Coming back to the branding thing.
Yes.
So the media is completely irresponsible. The moment they see any elephant, they will immediately tag it with any random number. 20 people killed, 30 people killed, or something like that. I even wrote to Behind Woods TV, which has created a video without having any background research about the Arikomban. They have created a negative background music for that elephant. and with the narration, which is so negative. They have created a small video and started floating it in behind it. The moment it came inside Tamil Nadu. Immediately I wrote to them, and within a couple of hours, they deleted that video. So because of such videos, people in every place are protesting. As I said, in that new place, Kalakad Tiger Reserve, the people started protesting because of this negative this thing. Nobody verifies the facts in case of. In another case in Attapadi in 2017, where I filed a case in Kerala High Court, all the killings in the past 5-6 years were tagged to that one elephant called Piliandi. Then I went and investigated the family members, the victims' family members. I asked them, do you know if this is the same Piliandi elephant which killed your family member? They said nobody knows all those things because in the dark, in the night, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, something happens. How will you know which elephant? Nobody has identified any elephant. The whole story was built upon that one elephant Piliandi. It is kept in captivity for the past 6 years near the Cochin, this place. So, and one more killing and fatality happened because of a female elephant. And when I inquired with his relatives, they said the person who died was not having hearing disability. He went for grazing his cattle in that forest area. He was sitting on a tree log. The elephant, along with the calf, came behind him in the middle of the forest. Since he didn't move, it made some noise. He didn't move, and it attacked him and moved away. And that person died. Even that female elephant fatality was tagged with this male elephant called Piliandi. Everything was tagged. I have written a detailed notes about this elephant capture Piliandi in my report. You can see this in my website. So wrong branding, and forest department also is very interested in saying this elephant has killed so many people and all those things without anybody identifying the real elephant. This is happening. So media should be very highly responsible. I even wrote a letter to the Tamil Nadu Forest Department saying that if you don't do a press release now and stop this nonsense, the entire media is going to defame your name also, the department name also. So be careful. They didn't bother to respond. I wrote it 1.5 months back, this letter. They didn't bother. Now when they shifted the elephant to Kalakad, the people started agitating, saying that this is a killer elephant. But that's not true. The department should have taken some efforts to release a press release saying that based on the Kerala High Court order, we are making an assurance that this is not an elephant which is causing human loss. So please don't be afraid. Something like that they should have made a press release. So current scenario is very bad.
It's always interesting to me that whenever there's instances of human-animal conflict, there's people saying that this particular animal has caused a lot of damage, and another group saying there hasn't, that these are all lies. So when we term an animal, or when we classify an animal as a problem animal, does that mean that animal has in fact caused damage or killed people? And is that what goes into calling an animal a problem animal?
This is for me. This question is for me.
Anybody could answer, one of you.
Hi, Sreedhar, you can go ahead with it.
Sreedhar, you're muted.
See, this is the issue again goes back to whole colonial ideologies of having animals tagged as rogues, and this also needs a reference to the Wildlife Protection Act, because the Wildlife Protection Act also has a mention saying that if an animal turns out to be a problem animal and is unmanageable, when there is no other option and turns unmanageable and it's a threat to human life or property, it can be removed. It can be so. In fact, it's rather strange that this section is included. I mean, this particular mention is actually under the section for hunting, because the animal needs to be. The removal of that animal is still considered to be hunting in our terminology. So that's just strange enough to me. But what goes into defining problem animals is, I think fundamentally, if you ask me, the whole idea of talking about problem animals itself is the wrong approach. You just cannot have a problem animal unless leopard or a tiger. Like in carnivore's case, you clearly know that the animal repeatedly comes for lifting cattle, for instance, because you put a camera trap, you get it identified. It's all possible now with all sorts of latest technologies. But in case of elephants, for instance, if a person gets killed, and in 80 to 85% of cases, the human mortalities actually happen during dark hours. Even in broad daylight, biologists find it hard to identify elephants properly. That forget common man trying to identify elephant in the dark hours of a night. How is that even possible that you are able to say particularly that it was PT7 that was responsible, or Pilandi, or Arikomban, or whoever for that matter was responsible for these human deaths? It's just not possible. It's just the basic instinct to put the ID to the easiest elephant possible. So the easiest elephant that one can identify, brand, or rather tag all problems onto that particular individual elephant and make it the problem animal. Otherwise, if you actually look at how this whole process of elephants being labeled as problem animals, there is no scientific thought process going into it. It's just some one or two locals would talk about, oh, this was the animal that was particularly responsible for this fatality, and then there's media that hangs on to it and creates a nice story. Now there's beautiful background scores and Instagram reels that gets floated around, and then tada, you have a problem animal.
So I would like to add a couple of points here. Sreedhar, you have done, completed?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. See, one is when in any of my reports, if you read my reports in my website, I never use a word killing of a human. I use fatalities or human loss. Only these two words. I never use the word elephant has killed. Because the typical example, as Sreedhar has worked in Valparai, Dr. Anand Kumar, who has done extensive research in that area and devised a system called Elephant Early Warning System. Yeah, he also has made a small, they have made a small documentary where he says there are only problem locations, not problem elephants. So accidentally a human being and an elephant cross paths in that area because it's filled with the tea estates, Valparai in Tamil Nadu. So accidentally they come across, and the elephant out of fear for self-defense, maybe it might be hitting the human being in a very mild manner because the size of the elephant is so huge. Even a mild hit, like it's like a V stabbing on an ant. Even though if you place the foot on an ant in a very mild manner, the ant is going to die. Even a very mild attack will ensure that the human being will die in that case. So how to prevent this accidental encounters of human and elephant crossing paths? So they have designed a system called Elephant Early Warning System, and it got international award also. It is very successfully running there in Valparai. You can see that 16-minute documentary. They are available in YouTube. It's there. Documentary is there. So this is like we cannot say the elephant is killer elephant or the elephant is not doing a planned murder, saying that somebody is walking in this road every day at morning 10 o'clock or night 10 o'clock. I'm going to wait in this particular point and kill that person. No, it is not a planned murder. No, accidentally the human being and elephant crossed path. For self-defense, it just hit the person and he died because of the huge size of the elephant, and even a mild attack will ensure human fatality. So this scientific solution was wonderful, like Elephant Early Warning System in Valparai in Coimbatore district. So the other one, that if you see that video, YouTube video, 16-minute documentary, it's beautifully done. The other one is, I never use the word crop raiding elephant in any of my reports. Crop raiding, that word isn't it? Because elephant by nature is designed a herbivorous animal. Anything green, it will try to consume. Anything green. It doesn't know that it is a private property and it belongs to a farmer who has invested money in raising the crops. According to it, something is green there and it is very tasty and very nutritious also. So it's trying to eat that. That's all. It doesn't know it belongs to a human being. It's a private property. All these things the elephant doesn't know. So I don't use the word crop raiding. That itself is wrong. I use the word crop consuming or crop eating elephants. I never use the word crop raiding. So because it's green, it's eating it. The elephant by nature is designed to eat greenery, no?
Right.
So it doesn't know that it is farmer's property, private property. It is very tasty. Compared to the forest food, the paddy or rice, whatever is there, it is very tasty for it. And banana trees and all those things are very tasty. So it is also green. Being a herbivorous animal, it will naturally try to eat those things. So even those cases, I don't keep the elephant as a villain, saying that crop breeding elephant and all. I will never say that. It is a natural instinct for an elephant to eat that greenery.
One last question that I had, it's almost time also, is that so when you're talking about elephants in Kerala, it is not easy to talk, to leave out the issue of captive elephants in temples and in other setups under private ownership in Kerala. So for example, like in one of these news debates that was going on about Arikomban, the fans of Arikomban, like the people who are rallying for his return or for his protection, or they were named as Arikomban fans. And it was said that that they are the same people who are also celebrating the use of captive elephants in temples. Like any of these celebrity elephants, like Lakshmi in Pondicherry or Pambadi Rajan, any of them. So it was termed as an act of hypocrisy that, on one hand, you celebrate the captivity of an elephant who might have had a life just like Arikomban. And on the other hand, you rally for Arikomban's, freedom and all that. So do you think this is an appropriate framing of the whole issue of hypocrisy? Like this is actually a hypocrisy to celebrate one and to, like denounce the other.
Is this question for me?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's absolutely wrong. See, in Kerala, there is a different trend. I'm not seeing this anywhere in India. Anapremis, they call themselves as elephant lovers, and they support this captive elephant business. I don't know what kind of elephant lovers they are. They all support this captive elephant business. So it's absolutely not acceptable. This kind of activities, all those things. You can take one stand. You cannot be taking two stands. Or you cannot support captive elephants and say that we are elephant lovers association and form a group of people and say we are elephant lovers and all those things. I don't know how this kind of ideology came into being in Kerala. Because in other states in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka where they have some captive elephant, they don't have this captive elephant lovers association and all those things. They don't know. Only in Kerala, this elephant lovers association is there, which is supporting the captive elephant business. So that is. But one thing I can say is, if the government decides to remove the captive elephants from the private custody, they can do it overnight. Because if the government can remove 80% of the money from all the people saying the demonetization overnight, each and every individual Indian was affected. 140 crore people were affected. 140 crore people were affected by demonetization. If the government has the guts to do that in overnight, removing captive elephants from maybe 200 or 250 private owners is nothing for the government. Just 250 people compared with 140 crore people who are affected due to demonetization. If they have the guts to say that 80% of the money that you are using is not valid from today night 12 o'clock, 8 o'clock, the television news came, and by 12 o'clock it became invalid within 4 hours. If that is possible in this country, removing private elephants from Kerala, from around maybe 200 or 250 private owners or from temples, is just nothing. It's only the willingness of the government to take action, nothing more than that. Nothing more than that.
And on that note, we've come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for spending this 1 hour with us. It's been great to you both speak. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.